Um, Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the HeatSmart Southern Tier program. My name is Matthew Tilley, and I am one of the Energy Corps interns for the Network for Sustainable Tomorrow. Today, you are going to learn about some of our different clean heating and cooling technologies and energy efficiency to decide if a free home assessment could be right for you. Next slide, please. So before we get started, I just want to mention that on this slide, we have some of our other upcoming webinars for our spring series. So feel free to check any of these ones out as well. Next slide. So Nest is a nonprofit organization that we are funded by NYSERDA, which is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. In addition to our HeatSmart Southern Tier program, we also have a community solar program and a Binghamton community power program, which helps us connect with low to moderate income residents to incentives by means of research, education, and outreach. This is to help them afford clean energy home improvements. Next slide. So today we're going to be talking about some of our program and some of its value propositions. Then we'll dive into some of the technologies, including weatherization and heat pumps. And then after that, we will get into money, how you can participate, talk briefly about community solar, and then finish off with a Q&A. Next slide, please. So our program covers the counties of Broome, Tioga, Chenango, and Delaware County. We are one of 18 HeatSmart programs existing across New York State. All of these programs, all of these community outreach programs are funded by NYSERDA, and the programs help to provide local experts that are not installers to provide a viewpoint of these technologies and what the process entails for deploying them in one's home. Next slide. So this visual here provides a good idea of what the major contributors are to greenhouse gases in New York State currently. The main one, as you can see, is transportation, but close behind it is heating and cooling of buildings at 32%. Following that is electricity, then waste and industry. New York State is focused on the greening of electricity, but as you can see, that's not the main concern. It would be good if we incorporate electricity into all aspects of buildings and transportation, especially because we already understand how electric and hybrid electric vehicles function. But in terms of buildings, there's not been a breakthrough for electric heating with heat pumps, which we will get into. So some of the top level benefits can include reducing your overall energy costs, both in the short term and long term, improving the comfort of your home, and reducing climate change. It's ideal that everyone can become energy literate, not only because some of us will be working in that industry, but because we will eventually need to replace our existing transportation and manufacturing energy systems. And what better way to do so than with clean energy? So these are some of the technologies that we are going to cover. We have weatherization, which is a home insulation and air sealing, and then ground and air source heat pumps and heat pump water heaters. So our installer partners that we have are competitively selected by NYSERDA through a request for proposals process. And these are the partners that we are working with currently. So for air source heat pumps, we have AirSource LLC for Broome, Tioga, and Chenango counties, and then D&D Refrigeration for Delaware County. For ground source heat pumps, we have Dailey Geothermal for all 4 of the counties. And then for energy efficiency, we have the Insulation Man. So the first step is weatherization. So now before you deploy heat pumps in your home, you want to check that your house is not leaking a lot of energy. And this is because heat pumps work better when your house is tighter and you do not want to have more heat pumps than you need. So you save money. If you are heating the outdoors though, your system could be oversized. So it's always better to have a smaller system. This involves an energy assessment that can be done at the front of your house, followed by a walkthrough of the home's interior and exterior with a safety element. That's a combustion safety test, just because we want to make sure that no combustible appliances within the home have their fumes always leaving the house. Then we have infrared cameras that are then used to see inside the walls and other surfaces to find out what you have in terms of insulation. And then a blower door test that allows us to gauge how much leakage there is in the home. And then finally, you would receive a report with an estimate afterwards. So this visual is a mock-up of a home. As you can see, you have cold air being drawn in and the hot air rising because of the thermal stack effect. And to the lower stories coming through the basement where the air is not usually the greatest, and then drawing the heated air out with it. So in terms of getting your money's worth, the number one thing is sealing up the leaks. And then number 2 would be putting in the insulation. So now we will move on to some of the heat pump technologies. So you may not know it, but you can actually find heat pumps already in your home. They are usually found in refrigerators and freezers. And at the center of a heat pump, you have a compressor, which can make things hotter, and you can use that heat to go in the direction of either heating up a space or cooling it. So this here is a breakdown of some of the different technologies that we offer. As you can see, ground source heat pumps kind of do it all, whereas air source heat pumps are focused on space heating and cooling, and heat pump water heaters can only heat water. So what ground source heat pumps do is they take the constant temperature that can be found underground and use it to heat up or cool your house depending on the time of year. They can get very hot, and typical ground source heat pumps can heat up to around 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, and this is all distributed throughout your house. And typically people have ducted systems for this, but it's also possible to achieve this with a radiant or baseboard water distribution system. And there are also 2 kinds of loop fields for ground source heat pumps. You have horizontal, which can be good if you have a good amount of space in your home that needs to be heated and cooled, and then vertical ones. And the point of it is you want to have the surface area of a sufficient amount of pipes. So why a ground source heat pump? Well, first of all, they're a very efficient form of heating. A home system could get as efficient as 600 to 700%. And what that means is if you were putting in 1 unit of electricity for the heat pump, you would be getting from that 6 or 7 units of heating. And these can usually last a long time, about around half a century. And heat pumps are typically warranted for a decade. There's also no fossil fuels involved with them, so you would no longer need to worry about the expenses of deliverable fuels such as propane or oil. So air source heat pumps use a similar technology as ground source heat pumps. They draw heat out of the air and bring into a system where the refrigerant boils by being compressed at a low temperature. And then the heat is distributed in the house. Um, and air source heat pumps can involve an outdoor unit that can be linked up to just one or multiple indoor units. And this allows you to bypass your existing distribution system altogether. And you could also continue using your existing heating system if necessary, although heat pumps today do not require much help, even in the coldest of temperatures. As you can see, there is also a number of different styles that you can choose from in terms of the indoor units. It all just kind of depends on your preference of aesthetic and how much they could heat up or cool a space, and also the pricing. So some of the benefits of air source heat pumps, in addition to energy savings, are air conditioning without any duct work involved, no need for a full heating replacement within your house, and the flexibility and quietness of them. And the last thing that we have for our technology sections is heat pump water heaters. And what they are basically is an electric water heater with an air source heat pump on top of it. These can cost more than typical gas heaters, but they are more efficient and the heat pump can provide an extra boost. You can only install them in an appropriate space because they need air in order to function. So an ideal space would be one that's semi-conditioned, like a basement that might not be fully finished. This is because a very cold basement can make the electric part of it work that much harder, and it will still deliver benefit. So I'm now going to just delve into some of the incentives and financing that you can get with these technologies. So in terms of air source heat pumps, if you were planning on heating or cooling a room or two, it would be 500 per outdoor unit, with about $100 less to the contractor per unit. Similarly, the full load rebate for this would be around $1,000 per 10,000 BTU. The rule of thumb for this, in terms of the average that person needs, is around 40,000 BTU or $4,000. But this could be waived depending on how the job looks. For ground source heat pumps, it's a full load technology, and it is around 1,500 per 10,000 BTU. And then you can see below it the different options for heat pump water heaters. So currently, the ground source heat pump federal tax credit is around 22% for this year. And for heat pump water heaters is up to $300. With these incentives and financing, if you were to sign a contract within this calendar year, you could still take advantage of these incentives and opportunities. So NYSERDA has three different loan products at fixed rates of 5, 10, and 15 years, up to 25,000, and its companion loan can allow for an additional 25,000 that you may draw on if your total cost after the incentives were to exceed the previous 25,000. And the companion loan is an unsecured loan, like I said, with a fixed rate, and the interest rate can depend on your income. So if you were to be around below 200% of the median income of the area you're in, then you would be eligible for the 3.49% interest rate. But if you were to be above that, it would be 6.99%. The on-bill recovery loan is more stringent in terms of the payback, but the good thing about it is that it lives on your utility bill, which can make it easier for you to transfer it over to a new owner if you were to sell your home. There's also a variety of unsecured loans through companies like Enerbank and Synchrony. And you can also go to your own bank or credit union to see what options they may have available. So this slide here is just talking a little bit about our income eligibility programs. The first one here is assisted home performance with Energy Star. And this program provides up to 50% of the project costs for those eligible, with a limit of 5,000 for single family units and 10,000 for 2 to 4 unit multifamily buildings. So what this means is if you were a landlord of a small multifamily building, you could take advantage of this incentive based on the income of your tenant if they were to qualify. This program usually requires that you are around less than or equal to 80% of the area median income. So the Mpower program is another program. It's a free program for those who are already receiving benefit programs like HEAP, and you can take advantage of this. You would have to pay your own utility bill in order to do this, but there are free assessment and efficiency improvements that are part of this, and heat pumps are now also eligible for this program. This is also another brand new incentive for homeowners under around 80% of the area median income. It covers products that are up to 60,000 BTU of heating and 1 to 4 unit residential buildings. At this point, natural gas homes are not eligible, only heat pumps. So this slide here just kind of talks a little about a case study that we had. So with the heat pump over the life of the unit, they were estimated to save around $13,338. Now for the energy efficiency measures, they are set to save around $360 per year. And that breaks down in the following ways. So the rim joist is around 44 per year. The side attics, $94 per year. The main attic flat is $222. Then there's the one combo detector, which is around 92. The insulation accessories for 235, and just some of the other ones as well. And this is just more talking about all that stuff that I was mentioning. So now the process for getting involved with these technologies that I've covered is how you do this is you sign up for a home energy assessment, and this can be involved with any of the 3 technologies. The nice thing about this collaboration that we have among our installer partners is that they work very well together. And oftentimes, if one contractor is at an audit and it becomes clear that another technology might be better, then they will refer the homeowner to their counterpart with the homeowner's approval. You can sign up for the assessments at our website at newyorknest.org, and you will get a message from the contractor that you would have chosen. You also get a quote, and if you decide to go forward, then we would have a contract for you that you may sign. I'm now just going to briefly mention our community shared solar program. So typically solar has one array that benefits either one individual or one entity. In the case of community solar, however, it can benefit multiple people. And how it works is as a subscription. So we are very fortunate to have Broome County's first large-scale community shared solar system in the town of Chenango, and it has 66 megawatts and around 40 acres. Our partners, Citizens Energy Corporation, have developed this project. And the way it works is you subscribe and you receive credits for the amount of solar that you are subscribed to, which is calculated based on how much electricity you are using currently. So the net result of this is that your energy bills for over the course of a year could be 20% less than they are currently. In order to get involved in this program, though, you must live in an area that is part of NYSEG's service territory. It can be really easy to join this program. The way you sign up is either online or over the phone with Citizens Energy. And if you were signed up online, we would pass along your information to them. The process can be very quick, and the only additional information they would need is a recent utility bill from NYSEG. But there's no entry or exit fee. And once they get the information from you, they put it in their queue, and every month they'll send a list of new subscribers to NYSEG, and they have around 60 days to get that onto your bill. And which at that point, you would be going to receive two bills, one from NYSEG and one from Citizens. And the net effect of these two bills is that your NYSEG bill is going to go down by a lot, and the Citizens bill is only going to make up 80% over the course of a year. We say over the course of a year because in the summer you would be producing more electricity than you need, and so those summer credits can then roll over to the winter months where there's less sunlight. Again, this is just our webinar series that we have. So definitely stay tuned for any flyers that we'll be sharing either through socials or email about upcoming webinars. So thank you again for everyone that has come to attend and listen to me talk. Before we get into the Q&A, I'll just pass it off to some of our installer partners just to talk a little bit about themselves. I'll pass off first to the installation man, if they would like to talk.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jess, and I'm with the Installation Man. I get this process started with the paperwork and the audit side of everything. I also go through with the customers through the application process and getting involved with the NYSERDA programs. You know, like he said, it starts with the phone call. I do things a little bit different in my office because I like it to work easier for the customers. I want the process to be as easy as it can be. So what I usually do is at first contact, I will pre-qualify them for whatever incentive programs that they will qualify for. And at the same time I send out the audit application, I will send out the grant application. So I can process both of those at the same time. And by the time we're ready to come out and do the audit, I will already have either the approval for Mpower itself or the pre-approval for assisted home performance. So, you know, it generally tends to go a little bit quicker and, you know, it helps out the customers. You know, we deal with the energy efficiency side. We get the insulation. We do air sealing, and, you know, we can address certain issues going on in the house. So, you know, from there, we pass it on to our partners, and, you know, I'm always around to help our customers when they need it.
Thank you for that, Jess. I will now pass it off to AirSource LLC.
Hey, can you hear me, Matt?
Mhm.
Okay, hang on. All right. So I'm Dave Tierno. My company is AirSource LLC. We specialize in applying air source heat pump technology to pretty much any type of home that's out there. New homes, existing homes, homes that span 3 centuries. It's pretty versatile technology, as most people know, and we've specialized in it for over a decade. We're very very entrenched with energy efficiency. We work very closely with the installation man on projects just to make sure that the customer is getting a good overall package, making sure that their house is treated properly, so that we don't have energy demands on the house unnecessarily. You really want to try to minimize the amount of energy required to heat and cool the home, and that's probably the most important part of the formula. And then once the load on the house is treated and under control, then that's when it makes most sense to apply a heat pump. But we do it all the time to any kind of, sometimes installation improvements are limited in what can be done due to the construction, but we can still apply a really sound heat pump solution to that. We do run a lot of people through the Green Jobs, Green New York, um, which is a good loan application. I know they talked a little bit about some of the rates, but there are some other qualifying factors regarding geographic location. It's not necessarily just income based. There are certain areas that pre-qualify for 3.99 or 3.49 if you use the auto pay feature. So, but it's a really good loan, and like they outlined, if you're doing like a deep energy retrofit project or something that takes a little more capital, they have that new companion loan, which is nice. So I'm here for any questions regarding air source heat pump systems and how they might apply to your situation, or any other questions you have about the technology. I live it, breathe it, sleep it every day, and have really dedicated myself to it. So I'm happy to help educate anyone, and I'm constantly on the search for new knowledge. So that's my spiel.
Thank you for that, Dave. Finally, we have Dailey Geothermal.
Hi, this is Leah. I am presenting for Ryan. He's unable to make this one this afternoon or this evening. So we are Dailey Electric, Dailey Geothermal, and my husband took over this business from his father back in 2007. His dad was 100% HVAC, did steam and oil and all of that good stuff. And then Ryan came into the business and kind of geared it to a little bit towards new construction and remodel. In 2008, he kind of shifted his focus and did a little bit more of the ground source heat pumps. And in 2008 is when they put their first geothermal system in. We have about 20 employees. We do everything new construction, remodel, electric, plumbing, and HVAC for those new houses. And then for HeatSmart, Binghamton, Ness and Tompkins, and now Finger Lake South, we are now doing the geothermal installations, and we're part of those partners. For Binghamton, we are down there doing geothermal. We come down, we do a site visit. With COVID, that's been a little bit harder. We kind of start with some pictures of the house, the heating system and such, kind of get an idea of what's what. And then we will have a site visit as long as the customer is happy with that. We do offer low to moderate income loans and EFS. We've worked through them. We do the assisted home performance with the installation man. I think we haven't worked yet with one of those, but we have with our other contractor. And let's see, I'm trying to cover everything that Ryan always covers. But I think that might be about it.
Thank you for that, Leah. We can now go on to the Q&A. If people have any questions, you can feel free to just share them in the chat or unmute yourself and say it.
So while folks are waiting to formulate questions, why don't we take another look at the slides referring to the Mpower and assisted home performance examples for low-income financing. So if you can, Olivia, if you can bring those slides back up, just a few things I want to highlight. Okay, if you can forward to the case study slides that are right after these. One more. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, just want to underscore the fact that this job is the first one that we and our partners, the Installation Man and AirSource LLC, did as part of what's being referred to as the energy efficiency study for low and moderate income homeowners from NYSERDA. They call it a study because there's a limited amount of money, and they are basically deploying that to try to see what the best route is to have a full-scale program. So the amount of money in this fund is limited, and when it runs out, it runs out. And actually, no one knows when that is, but it's not going to be, in the next 2 weeks. But it's definitely the kind of thing where you want to not dilly-dally. So if you look at the financials here, the cost to the customer is zero, nothing. So in this case, for Mpower, they will cover energy efficiency measures, and there's a wide variety of those, up to $10,000, 100%. And then if you take a look at the AirSource heat pump cost, this particular system that they've put in is 48,000 British thermal units, BTUs. And the incentive from NYSEG is $1,000 per 10,000 BTUs, which makes that 4,800. And then the NYSERDA adder incentive, the study incentive, excuse me, is covering the rest of it. And so the cost is nil for the Mpower customer. And if you look at the savings, they're substantial. Next slide, please. All right, so the Assisted Home Performance Program is for homeowners whose household income is between 60 and 80% of area median income. We can take a look at those slides in a second, again, showing the income levels. The Mpower program is 60% or less. So if you qualify for the Heating Assistance Program, TANF, or other similar programs for low-income New Yorkers, that means you would qualify for this. So I've basically taken the same job in terms of the numbers and pretended that it was a homeowner that qualified for assisted home performance rather than Mpower. The grumbling you see there is one of my dogs who always gets in my face whenever I'm talking on a webinar. So in the case of the energy efficiency measures, AHP, or assisted home performance, covers 50% up to $10,000. So you can see that covers half of the 5211 cost. And then for the AirSource heat pump, you can see that the NYSEG incentive does not vary according to income. It remains the same. That's based on the size of the system and the type of system. So the money is different for ground source than for AirSource. And so once you net that out, the total cost to the customer is $6,950 for a total cost of $9,555. Could you back up, please, to the assisted home performance slide, just so people can take a look at those income numbers? So I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Household size, income limit. is there. In order to use these programs, as I think I mentioned in the chat, was also mentioned, I think, during the presentation, that starts with the installation man. Because this is an income eligible program, NYSERDA requires that the home performance contractor be the lead on this. And then from there, you would work with one or the other in terms of heat pump contractors. I actually have a question for you, Jess. I was just talking to a potential customer today who has gotten an assessment and had a lot of insulation and air sealing work done maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Can you talk about what happens in that case? That would be helpful. And I see we've got a quick question from Jim that I'll answer first. The rule of thumb, 30 to 40,000 BTUs, but that's very rule of thumb. That's one of the reasons we need the assessment to be done. And the cooling ducting question, I'm going to pass. Oh, there's Dave Terno. No ductwork required for AirSource. But let's first go to Jess. Jess, if you can answer the question I asked regarding the client who already has had an assessment and insulation and so forth done, and then maybe we'll go to Leah Dailey to talk about the ducting question for geothermal.
Yeah, so for a customer, and we've actually got a couple of them that we are talking to right now that have insulation in their house already. So what happens when they come to us is we basically set up a site visit with our auditor. He will come out, make sure that the insulation meets the minimum requirements from NYSERDA. And, you know, at that point, you know, we still handle the administrative side. We do all the paperwork for NYSERDA, for the grant programs, for the loans. And then, you know, we forward them on to the whichever heat pump contractor is going to be in on that particular project. So, I mean, you know, that one's a little bit, you know, kind of, you know, shorter, I guess, in terms for the customer as far as the process goes, because, you know, it essentially they only need to use one component of the system. You know, they don't need the insulation side of it. So, you know, after we've done all the administrative work, you know, we're really out of it until, you know, the job is complete and we have to upload it for payment.
Thanks, Jess. And I think I'm right in saying that, you know, the main concerns when you are checking an insulation air sealing job from the past is, has there been any settling of insulation? Was the job well done at the time? That sort of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's also a question of what product is in the house. You know, there are some products out there that don't have as good of a resistance as others do. You know, so we'll look for that too, because if it's something that needs to be touched up, you know, that's, you know, something that we would definitely want to have taken care of for the customer's benefit and for everybody else. Now, can we back up to one of those slides? Because I actually want to point something out too.
Sure, which slide?
One of the case study slides that breaks down the cost of everything.
All right, let's go to the Mpower slide, Olivia. The one that breaks down for Mpower, first one of the two.
Yep, just give me 1 second.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to read some Dave Terno pearls of wisdom here in the chat regarding the BTU size. Yes, 30 to 40 BTUs is average, but can be more or less depending on how tight and well insulated the home is, type of windows, single double pane, etc. An air source heat pump. Whoops, I'll come back to that. This just took over the screen. Is this the this? Let's see. Yes, there we go. Just moving there. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, that's perfect, because there's one important thing that I want to point out for anybody that's watching, that's looking at the annual savings and seeing the $360 and maybe saying, you know, that's not all that much. This particular customer, they heat their house with wood. He still goes out and cuts wood to heat their house. So they don't have that added cost of a fuel oil or a propane bill. You know, so for somebody that has one of the fossil fuels that they need to pay for, that annual savings would go up quite a bit from where this particular customer is. So like I said, their only source of heating is a wood stove. So, you know, that's not an expense that they have.
Great, thanks very much. Yeah, if you can put it back to gallery view, Olivia. I'm just going to read this from Dave, and then we'll turn it over. I see that Ryan is here with us, so perhaps he could address that question about ductwork. Dave Chernow said an air source heat pump system uses various types of ductless or mini ducted, typically in attic units, to deliver zone heating and cooling to the home, does not need existing ductwork. So yeah, Ryan, do you want to talk a little bit about how ducting works for Geo?
Yeah, how you doing, Adam? We can do the same thing. That whole air source thing's right out the door now. We got all kinds of technology that just throws Dave right out the door. See you later, Dave. We match up. We try to size for 400 CFMs per ton. So after you do a heat loss, you try to get that. Very rarely does that happen. Almost every duct system we're adding returns or feeds, especially returns. I mean, they all know that you get in there, the returns are always horrible in old houses and stuff, and getting proper returns is usually the challenge for the cooling side of it. But we have ducted systems kind of like that too, in the same sense that you can use small systems and do little different things with different technology. Same stuff Dave has, just with a ground loop instead of air. But 400 CFM is what we shoot for.
Got you. Other questions? Don't be shy. You're getting free time here with some really high quality craftspeople. Should ask them anything. Or I'm going to have to ask another question, which I'd rather not do, but I will. All right, so question number 2. Talk a little bit about service, and why don't we start with Ryan and go back to Dave in terms of servicing these two heat pump technologies.
Water to air, there's not a ton to service as much as they're used to, because we have monitoring available to us that fully monitors everything the unit does every 10 seconds. So that helps. There's still filters that need to be changed regularly every 3 to 4 months or based on runtime. There's drive filters on some of the units. There's loop pressures, loop temperatures to get checked. I mean, we still put our eyes on them and check them. Not as horrible kind of as it used to be as far as how long it took. The water to water units, we don't have as good monitoring. So there's not necessarily filters all over to check or anything unless you have an air handler. But there are a lot more temperatures. There's a lot more flow rates, gallons per minute stuff that need to be checked on the water to water units. But I guess the main thing with the Geo system is really checking the loop field. And it's really that first year for us is a big thing to check the pressures. If it's a pressurized system, if it's non-pressurized, checking the flow levels, and the methanol or antifreeze mixture inside of the unit is the big ticket to check.
Hey, Dave, you want to go next?
Yeah, having a little bit of an audio issue here. Can you hear me good?
Yep.
Okay. Well, we don't have, loop fields or, any of that type of stuff we have to worry about checking. We're not going to dig your lawn up or bring a drill rig in there, or contrary to what Mr. Dailey wants you to believe. They can't do the same stuff we can do. I mean, they have a unit in your basement that needs a type of distribution system. They don't have anything like what we have. So, you can't put 6 different zones, ceiling cassettes in a house and give you precise control over each area. You have, you're kind of a slave to what the distribution system is. So whether that's a water to water, where you have, extensive pumping and all different kinds of variables that aren't really factored into the specs that, are given on the equipment. You don't have any of that stuff. We don't have to do a lot of monitoring. We have the capability, if we have a system with an issue, where we can put a laptop on it. But we don't really need to do that. It just begs the question. You have all this monitoring because it's needed. So AirSource, we just put it in and it runs. And if it's put in correctly, designed correctly. So that's my little spiel back to Mr. Dailey over there. But it's like anything else. I mean, and Ryan will tell you the same thing. If it's designed correctly, and there are variables with geo with I'm sure that have to do with basically the makeup of the ground and that type of thing that really affect that. Nobody can predict exactly how their system is going to perform, and that's why it's important, and that's why they take the time to really monitor and do the things they do to make sure that the customer is getting the system and the performance that they have targeted. So they're to be commended for that. But we don't have those types of things that we have to deal with. We just like anything else, we do our due diligence to design the system properly and install it correctly and go above and beyond, from a quality standpoint to ensure that the system is going to perform the way it's supposed to. And that's really what it's all about. I mean, there's not a lot of, the maintenance is just basically with indoor units. Anytime you have, any air handler of any style that's moving, damp air across the coil, you're going to have some things that need to be cleaned every few years. That's to be expected, and that's basically what it amounts to. They've made some advances very recently, which are going to really cut that down to maybe something where it's one every 8 years or 10 years or something, as opposed to every couple or 3 years. So it's really it's not like a furnace or a boiler that's going to have a problem with proven flame or a draft inducer or any of those types of things. They're designed to be permanent. Mitsubishi's been making this stuff since the 70s, and they're I think water furnace has been around, I think, since the early 80s. I think probably 82, 83, somewhere in there. The stuff is built to last, and it's reliable equipment when it's applied correctly. So
Thanks, Ryan. In case there are folks who can't see the chat, Jim Taft is asking, where the electrical system needs additional circuits. Is this part of the installation? And yes, you can get your box upgraded as part of the installation. I believe I'm right in saying there's some additional costs for that, depending on what's needed. Is that right, Ryan? I can see you if you nod.
Yeah, that's correct. A lot of times service got to be upgraded. We do draw generally more power than the AirSource guys.
Got you. Okay. Dave is saying it's very rare to need an upgrade for AirSource. I had another question in my head, but it's gone. I think Matt had one he was going to ask.
Yeah, I have a question. I have a question for Jess. What different types of what are like some of the pros and cons of the different types of insulation that you guys offer? And is there like one that's more commonly like used that you see in most houses?
I'm going to add a friendly amendment to that, not just the ones that you offer, just to give people a sense of the quality of the different products that they're going to find out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good question. I guess, we'll start off at the bottom end of the totem pole, which is the fiberglass bats. We see them commonly in houses. They are not very efficient at all. They don't have a true R value. There's no way to air seal around them. They would have to be put pretty tightly into a cavity to be able to be effective. And even still, they just don't hold the same resistance. There is a blown-in fiberglass. It's a 2-component fiberglass. It's actually got fibers, and the other component is just water. When you spray it in, it actually interlocks and ends up looking like a blanket. We actually did a job using that. I believe it was actually just last year. We did an entire house with it, and it was a new experience, but, you know, it's definitely something that we look forward to doing more of. You know, our two main products that we offer are blown-in cellulose, which is, you know, pretty typically it's like a ground-up newspaper. It's been treated with borate to make it fire retardant, and, you know, we use that a lot as far as insulating walls and, you know, insulating attics that people aren't using for storage. Our other product is the spray foam. You know, we use this a lot in rim joists. We also use it for air sealing the top plate in a house. And we use both of those products, you know, pretty equally. You know, a lot of times, you know, more often than not, we usually end up using both products in a house in order to get it to where it needs to be. You know, as far as new construction, we usually always recommend spray foam, but, you know, that's up to the owner and, you know, what they want. But, you know, there's, you know, really good benefits to both of them as far as being in a house. You know, it's just that it's those pink rolls that we don't like to talk about. Everything else is all right.
Thanks very much, Jess. Any other questions? Or any things that any of our partners would want to emphasize that maybe we haven't talked about yet? Sounds like people want to go to their supper or whatnot. All right, well then I'm going to kick it back to you, Matt, to close us out.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Thank you again, everyone, for coming to our webinar tonight. Stay tuned for any of our future ones that will be coming up. We have another one on April 14th. So be on the lookout for the flyer for that. But yeah, and thank you to all of our installer partners for being here. We hope you all have a good day or a good night.